One thing I absolutely loved was the quiet.
All right, apartment tour. Here's the front door. Here's the kitchen area. Living room. There's a little balcony. This is where you saw the view from. It's pretty sweet. Honestly, lucked out so hard on that. Yeah, this is the main living area. It's like a pantry thing, bathroom. Right there. Oh, there, storage closet. And then bedroom. Got a sheet hanging here because there's no curtains. And got a pretty sweet view from there too. Yeah, super sweet. Live here alone, so it's a lot of space.
I often just found myself sitting in random places, even on the floor in random spots in my apartment, just listening to just how silent it was with nobody but me around. I often found myself then thinking about how far away my friends and family were, and just how I even ended up there in the first place. But especially the silence was amazing in the mornings when no one would wake me up except if I set an alarm or when I'd gotten enough sleep on the weekends. It was fantastic. I figured out that being alone is not the same thing as being lonely. I often found myself missing the chaos of a bigger family. And even as an introvert, I started realizing that I did need other people around in order to be happy. Or so I thought at the beginning. I felt like I needed this sense of connection. And this kind of sent me into a spiral at one point too, a couple months in, where I felt like nobody was around and I didn't really have anybody to turn to and felt lonely all the time. But after this period, I started to get used to it a bit more and realized that this was only a phase, and I started to really, really love living by myself. It also brought me a sense of completeness in a way. Living with friends now and with family when I was younger, I felt like I couldn't really ever be my true self. And this was mostly because I just didn't really have time for myself and the space to really just be alone. When I had my own place for a year, I really felt like I could be my true self. I was where I was supposed to be, and when I got home, I felt this huge sense of relief and peace wash over me every single day. And that was such a nice feeling and such a nice change for me because it really allowed me to focus on my personal growth. I remember just coming home after work every single day, working my crappy job at the time, and just being so grateful and happy that I had that place furnished how I had it and how I had everything set up. It was just so cozy and nice, and I'll put some pictures in the video here so you guys can get an idea, but I just loved the layout and what I had kind of made for myself, I guess. It was a year I'll never forget because it really let me go deep on my emotions, my creativity, and just kind of finding out what kind of person I was and what I loved to do. I especially found this to be true later in the evening for some reason. I'm just very much a night owl and love time at night, so I'd spend time looking at the city lights, doing some work, or even just sitting there with a snack, looking at the city lights and thinking big about life. I really do think fondly back on this time, being all alone and having all that space to myself. I found it was a lot easier to just get lost and be curious. With nothing to distract me and no noises going on in the background, I often felt like I was just in such deep thought, even while something as simple as brushing my teeth or cleaning on the weekends. I found my thoughts just kept getting louder and louder, and I would think a lot more than I normally would. Sometimes I would even go an entire weekend without seeing anyone else, as unhealthy as that might sound. Sometimes it was just nice, and I came up with some awesome ideas, both for content and even what I wanted to do in life in general. I also found that I went down a lot of more rabbit holes, I guess, when I watched a video or was listening to something or even listening to music. I listened to a lot different music then than I do now, simply because I experimented more and found myself wondering about different artists and different genres, and yeah, everything just kind of came to life in a way. I definitely found myself in this habit of creating rituals for myself, and one of them for sure was it was great having everything where I wanted it to be, and even when I got home from work or wherever I was going, that everything would kind of be in the same place and exactly as I left it because nobody had been there. From decorating my place to how much peanut butter I left in the jar to where I left my remotes for my TV, nothing shifted in the time I left for work and by the time it came back. It was almost a little bit weird at the beginning because growing up in a family of 6, this was never the case. This was very liberating, especially since I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, and having those things kind of in place was very satisfying to me and made me really happy. It was also somewhat of a magical feeling, just having a space that's purely your own to do with as you please, and you can just live your life however you want. You don't have to share anything, you don't have to make anyone happy, you don't have to be quiet at night when you come home very late at night because you have roommates. It's just you, yourself, and you. It was also nice not having to worry about having people over if they'll connect well with the It was also nice when I had people over that I didn't have to worry if they got along with my roommates or with other people, but that I could just invite them over regardless, even if it was last minute, and it would be really fun and we could have a great time and do whatever we wanted. It was also really nice, I'm not gonna lie, in the first stages of this YouTube channel, being very camera shy and not wanting anyone else to overhear me speaking to a camera. Welcome back, everybody. This week we are diving in with another investing topic, although it can also be considered trading. We're gonna be talking about options. It was very nice having that space and that quiet and that freedom. Living by myself for a year also taught me a lot about how to act mature and really transitioned me into adulthood, especially because it was also paired with getting a new job in a new city. I felt like this, combined with getting my own place, really made me feel like an adult. I remember I always felt really proud when I brought friends or family over, or even told them about it or sent photos, because it felt like a representation of me and what I had accomplished to get there. And it just felt like a piece of me that I could show off and kind of have people in as like a place that they could be safe and happy when they came over. Watching TV felt magical too. I was in a dark room by myself, completely quiet, and could just fully zone in and focus on a nature documentary or really anything I was watching, and it made the experience so enjoyable. In a way, I would consider living by myself for a year a bit of a dopamine detox, as weird as it sounds to say. It was just me and my thoughts for a very long time. And weirdly enough, as much as you'd think I would be bored and would go to social media to make me happier, and certainly there were days where this was the case, but often I would find myself just thinking or being in this train of thought that doesn't even require me to have my phone with me, and was just thinking thoughts and looking and journaling and writing things down. And that was just so different than what I was used to. Weirdly enough, it also made me more intentional with my time. I found that when I didn't have other people demanding my attention or them asking me to do different things or have different noises and things going on in the background, that I could get a lot more done when I just sat down and got it done and just had that silence to work in peace. When you're living with friends or family, it can often be difficult with all these things demanding your attention. Even if you aren't planning for them, there's always something that comes up and will inadvertently mess with your calendar. I did find it easier to focus and get things done. I often did find that being alone made me think a lot more and also miss my family and friends, which often, again, made it a bit harder to focus and might have increased my wasted time that I wasn't actually doing things as well. So this might kind of balance out. Being alone also kind of felt like a cleanse and a reset, especially after a busy week and having a Saturday or an entire weekend by myself in my own apartment. It was just a great way to unwind and to kind of rinse off the week, I guess, of all the social interactions and crazy stuff going on and all the stress. It was just a very nice way to unwind. And being somewhat introverted, I feel like it also helped me recharge my social battery much easier. Living with friends now, it's a lot harder to do that when there's friends all around you all the time and you're constantly engaging in social interactions, or even having just a simple conversation about who started the dishwasher or who didn't, you know? It's very easy to forget that and that you need that time to just reset. I also noticed when I did go out, I was so much more energized, not as drained as I normally am, and felt more present with those people that I was out with because I had been deprived of that by being by myself. So I really valued that time that I did have with my friends. So originally I moved from the Caribbean, living with my parents in 2021 when I wanted to pursue a career in finance. I moved all alone to Toronto, all the way from Kelowna in BC in Canada, and moved all the way across the country by car to get to Toronto. And although my parents moved around many times in my childhood and early adulthood, all of the time I was living with them. And this was my first taste of having a place of my own. And that was what made it really special. And that feeling too, when I arrived in Toronto and I started seeing these skyscrapers and was kind of driving towards my apartment that I actually had never seen before but already signed the contract for, it was a bit surreal too. I felt like I'd never even been here before. I felt this sense of imposter syndrome and also kind of scared, but also curious at the same time, and also homesickness. A lot of different feelings came up, especially when I pulled into the apartment parking lot and saw my apartment for the first time. It was crazy. And the first few weeks kind of went on like that. It felt like I was on vacation and that I would leave to go home any day now. But in reality, this was my new home. Honestly, the one thing I regret though is not journaling. It would be so interesting to see my thoughts and what was going on in my head at that time. And I was not writing in my journal at that time, which I'm very upset about, but I can only imagine what that would have been like. Honestly though, living alone is not exactly for everybody. And although I went into it haphazardly and kind of unknowing what I would find and discover within myself, I did struggle a lot at the start, and although it did end up okay, it could have gone a very different route as well. Mental health is such a big component of this, and I know there's a lot of difficulty with mental health in today's world. So I just want to be mindful of that and to make sure that if you are someone struggling with a mental health disorder or anything for that matter that might make it difficult for you to live alone, just think very carefully about it, or maybe move into an apartment alone but be in the same building as a friend or a relative or someone who's close to you, so you have someone there close by to help you out if you need it. Don't just move to a new city like what I did, because it can be very isolating and can definitely lead you down a dark path if you aren't careful. I'm lucky enough to have my mental health be in a good state. I still struggle with the feelings of homesickness, isolation, and just feeling lonely in general that would sometimes completely paralyze me in terms of what I was trying to do. I feel like it also helped me find myself and be more comfortable with myself and the skin I'm in. It helped me kind of find my voice and who I am as a person, and I think this is so important for everybody to develop at some point in their life. And for that reason, I did really enjoy living alone and would definitely encourage you to do so if you think you'd also benefit from something like this. But if you're somebody who feels like you need to always be around people, you're very extroverted, you don't really like time alone, I would advise against living alone. This would probably not be the best option for you. But again, much like a detox and a dopamine detox does in general, living alone just allows you to have more time to think, to really pursue your passions, to listen to your thoughts, to develop your inner voice. I found myself always talking to myself and thinking out loud, which was very interesting. I never thought I would do something like that. But it's also just a great way to just listen to yourself and what you need and focus on you. And honestly, I'm surprised I left this for last, but it has taught me so much. I've learned incredibly much from living alone. From things as far as personal development to being able to fix a light in the kitchen to becoming somewhat of a fridge operator and mechanic because my fridge wasn't working for some time. There's so many skills you learn, even things like how to sweep properly or making sure everything is ready to go for the next morning when you have work in the morning and you're so used to living at home and your parents helping you out with all these things. Even things like dealing with a landlord and paying my bills, figuring out what a credit score was and everything, I think in a way that also helped enhance even this channel, but also just how I handled things in general. You need to now take care of all those things and learn it yourself. And that was such a big learning curve, but also such a blessing. I had to do everything myself, and that really set me up for success in a way. So it was very eye-opening experience and definitely something I will never regret and will always cherish.